Why, hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the Fandom Power Sunday Night live stream. It is our little review series here that we like to call FANdor. My name, of course, is Wes R. Scott. I am your host. This week, we are flying the missing man formation.
We do not have the complete.
We are Sans 1. Hank is caught up in life. We have left the studio wide open. He can bounce in here at any time. Maybe, maybe not. We shall see. We shall see. Guys, starting to sound like old hat here. Whether this is your first time with us or if you've been with us for the long haul, I want to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts for choosing us as your source of entertainment, because that is what we like to do here. Not only is it entertaining you guys, it's kind of self-satisfying in that I love the process of going through this week after week when we have a meaty series like Andor to dig in on and find all those little details that maybe you're not seeing.
Because they put them there. And somewhere in a studio, somewhere down there in Disneyland,
of course,
somebody's like, oh God, I hope someone finds this.
Absolutely.
Like, I hit it in that scene. Maybe it made it in.
Yeah. Whether you're here with us on the live stream or you're catching us in the replay, whether it's on YouTube or any of the audio places where your audio podcasts can be found, we love your comments. So please keep those coming. As I've said before, those comments can and have influenced the direction of the show. And if you want to have more influence on our show, consider becoming a patron at the Fandom Power Podcast on Patreon, where we have a couple of levels that you can choose from. Any support is always welcome. Now, about Andor, and well, really, it's all of our review series, really, if you want to talk about it. Our beatdowns. Whoa, that's a whole other show. Our breakdowns, they are beat for beat and they are note for note. We cover all of the plot points, all of the Easter eggs, and of course, any greater Star Wars lore connections that we discover throughout the course of the show. So if you think that by Sunday night, the show has been out for 4 days?
4 or 5 days, yeah.
That you've seen it all and you've heard it all, I do encourage you to stick around for the long haul, because we tend to do things just a little bit different than those other guys. And I think you'll be surprised at what comes out in the course of our episode. Things that you probably, well, maybe not probably, things that you may have missed. We do like to go on those tangents of certain point of view, which I am going to reference a few times tonight. All right, so with that out of the way, last week, if you were with us, we started a new segment that we are going to try and keep running with, and of course that segment is Bad Star Wars Jokes. This week's bad Star Wars joke comes from Andy.
Yeah.
You got one for us.
I got one for you.
All right, let's have it.
Did you know that the Lego Alderaan set is the only one to come fully assembled?
Oh boy.
Too soon?
I like that one. That's almost as good as the was a meme of Owen and Beru Lars, their action figures, and it was a skeleton in a on a blister card. I like that one. That was good. Now, do you guys have any bad Star Wars jokes out there that you want to share with us? Please do send them to us. You can drop them in the comments. If you do, I'm not going to display those comments because I want to hold your joke for future installments. You can email them to us at fandompower3. That's fandompower number 3 at gmail.com, or you can send them to us through any of our social media channels. But again, this has been Bad Star Wars Jokes. And we'll be back with more of those. With all of that out of the way, let's talk about this week's episode. This week's episode, Narkina 5. Andy, initial impressions. What do you think?
It was good. Another fast-paced one. It did not feel as long as it was, and it moves things forward, but it leaves me with questions.
I have some questions as well. I also have some observations. This week's title did not leave a whole lot to the imagination for themes,
Yeah.
for thematic sort of overtones. However, I did pick up on some themes this week, or at least some recurrent ideas. And that line, that legacy line that Obi-Wan Kenobi speaks from a certain point of view,
Mhm.
there are a couple of instances throughout the episode, which I'll talk about them when they come up, where people's perceptions have been altered and in interesting ways. Where remember the telephone game in school?
Sort of, yeah.
So I tell you, the red fox jumped over the
And it ends up
black
purple monkey dishwasher.
exactly.
Okay, yeah,
So
yeah.
there's a couple instances like that that happen in the episode a couple times, and I'm not sure if that's just the individual that's speaking, if they're just blowing things up, or that's just the natural evolution of how when information goes around, especially stories, right? The
Mm.
story just gets bigger and more like, oh my god! Suddenly you go from stubbing your toe to having your leg amputated, right? That kind of thing, and we see
Leg
that.
fell off.
We do see that. All right, let's get things rocking up here. Okay, this week it is. Oh, by the way, Andy freaking Circus.
The master of motion capture,
Hard not
among
to.
other
You
things.
can't really keep that one under wraps. That's kind of the way it is. And also, if you ever wanted to know how to build a cheap labor force,
Well, this goes back to that line maybe 2 episodes ago.
yeah.
Where they're talking about, if the Aldani people don't play ball, we got work for them to do.
Well, there's absolutely that. All right, this one, it's called Narkina 5. It aired on Disney Plus Wednesday, October 26th. This one is written by Bo Willimon and directed by Toby Haynes. Toby Haynes back again. He has directed before, but this is the first time we've seen him since, oh my gosh, episode, I didn't write it down. I can't remember the last episode that he directed.
Was it 3?
May have been. I'll have to double check that.
I think it was 3.
The advertised runtime for this episode was 57 minutes. So that is like up there with some of the highest runtimes. It is a more modest 46 minutes and 30 seconds without your titles and credits. All right, here. Bo Willimon, we haven't seen him yet, but he is the guy who helped develop the American version of House of Cards. He served as the show's showrunner for the first 4 seasons, of which he has written 23 episodes. So again, another political drama guy right here, into Andor, and I think it's a great fit, to be honest.
It really is.
All right, so our episode opens with a lineup of prisoners that have been wedged into a narrow hallway. Cassian stands among them in single file while shore troopers order the lineup to keep moving up a staircase. Now, at the top of the stairs, Cassian emerges into an amphitheater where we see 3 transport ships sitting atop the bleachers.
It's like a little distribution hub for prisoners.
You think so? At one time, I can't help but think that this is a repurposed, like, it's an amphitheater. I bet you it was an amphitheater at one point, and now, like, I can't help but think that this is the back of the back entrance of the courtroom.
Maybe,
like the courtroom was just sort of set up in the basement or something.
Yeah,
or
in the dressing room for whatever
armor
would have been coming out normally.
Well, more shore troopers bark at the prisoners, asking them for their home worlds. The man standing in front of Cassian, a gentleman by the name of Tuck Ibex, tells the trooper that he's from a world called Galdi, and the trooper points towards the ship on the right side of the amphitheater, indicating that he's now on his way to somewhere called Belsavis. And then it's Cassian's turn as he tells the trooper that he's from somewhere named Daris Plata. Now, this is a brand new name making its first appearance here. It has no other Star Wars references. And the trooper points to the central transport ship and says, Narkina 5. That's also a new name making its first appearance here. Well, Cassian, never heard of that, says, what's that? And then the trooper orders him onto the transport. Cassian still protesting that I'm just a tourist. But another shore trooper basically shoves him up the stairs. Then another prisoner steps up for processing, indicating that he's from Girmos. Lots of new names this week.
Mhm.
And the trooper directs him onto the ship that is headed for Bel Savis. Okay, Bel Savis, now predominantly an ice world, located somewhere in what is referred to as the distant Outer Rim, once serving as a prison world for the Rakatan Empire. And that's not the first time we've heard about the Rakatans coming up in this series. We talked about that with with Luthen and the Kyber.
Mhm.
Yes. So there are some isolated temperate regions due to isolated volcanic activity. And it's not near on the map. When you look at it, it's not near any world that I've ever heard of before. Now, it is a Legends era planet. First popped up in the 1995 novel Children of the Jedi. Now, we've talked about that novel as well. So that's not the first time that this has come up over the course of the series.
Mhm.
However, this is an interesting one. The word Belsavis was also a cheat code in the Revenge of the Sith video game back in 2005. The Belsavis cheat code actually gave you all Jedi moves and force powers. Now, if you never played that one, it played kind of like the old PS1 game called Jedi Power Battles. I really enjoyed it. So yes, the Revenge of the Sith video game. If you haven't played that, Belsavis, all powers and what is it? All powers and moves. There we go. Well, on Coruscant, Cyril Karn toils away at his workstation, poring over endless pages of data. At the sound of a mouse droid, quite possibly the same mouse droid that he nearly tripped on before.
Maybe.
Cyril looks up from his work to see Flob, who's now escorting two Imperial ISB agents. One of them happens to be Hirt, Dedra's attendant. They stop in front of his workstation. Now on back on Niamos, after everybody's been loaded up onto the transports, the Imperial officer or the Imperial corrections guy, I don't know what to call him, correctional dude, I guess. Guard. Guard. He orders the men to remove their footwear. And as soon as they do, their wrist restraints, their binders, they actually separate and get magnetically locked to the seat rails beside them.
Efficient.
Very much so. Now, the prisoners, they kind of look nervously around at each other while Cassian closes his eyes as the ship begins to shudder and lift off. Meanwhile, at the central office of the Imperial Security Bureau, Cyril Karn now sits alone in a stark white interrogation room. His foot twitches nervously, and then the door opens and Dedra Miro enters, announcing herself as the sector supervisor for the Merlana sector. Cyril asks what happened to Blevin, but Dedra cuts him off. I'll be asking the questions here.
Not wasting any time diving.
No. Dedra tells him that now she's been reviewing the incident of Ferrix, and she had intended to bring him in to fill in some of the gaps. But her whole sort of time frame for that just got stepped up because it turns out that old Cyril here has been submitting multiple requests to the Bureau of Standards data center looking for a man named Cassian Andor. And because of that, their meeting is happening right now.
So basically, he's doing the same thing she did.
Well, as he said, he has, limited resources at his disposal. Dedra recounts how on 3 separate occasions that Cyril has claimed Cassian to be a missing fuel specialist, an unresponsive energy engineer, and a fuel purity field officer suspected of forging Imperial reports, adding that in less than 1 month, Cyril has filed 5 false inquiries, including the one this morning, to which Cyril says, actually, it's 6. Pointedly, she says, what are you doing? And then looking up at her, Cyril calls Cassian a murderer and a threat to the Empire. and he's been trying to find him with the limited tools that he has available to him. Well, Dedra steps a bit closer to Cyril's seat, and she tells him that he has now earned the attention of the ISB, and she offers him a chance to tell her what exactly it is that he's up to. Well, without looking at her, he says that he's trying to clear his name. And when Dedra suggests that one would think that you would want to leave Ferrix behind, he looks up at her and he says, one would be wrong. A bold statement, I believe, in my opinion anyway. Given where he's at in the room, in that chair, you want to be careful how much flexing you do here.
Yeah, he's making himself clear, though.
That is true.
He wants his position back.
He does.
He wants his,
I
his
think it's, yeah. I mean, he wants that, as he says, he wants to clear his name and get his record cleared out. Well, Dedra remarks that she has a busy day ahead of her and asks what's in Lieutenant Blevins' report that she's missing. And she's actually quite surprised to hear Cyril tell her that even though he was assigned it, he wasn't allowed to actually read it. Well, thoughtfully, she looks at him for a bit, and then she storms out of the interrogation room without saying a word. Of course, outside the room, there's two-way mirrors in the room. So Hirt and the other attendant have been watching, and she basically says, let him read the report, and hands off her data pad, noting that she should be upstairs by now because, as we're about to find out, there's another meeting about to happen. Well, somewhere off in space, an Imperial transport carrying a load of prisoners, including one Cassian Andor, approach a small moon orbiting a gas giant, and that moon is identified as Narkina 5. The ship descends through the atmosphere, and Cassian cranes his neck to get a look outside the window louvers. As the ship banks, now he can see that there are a series of large heptagonal structures, 7-sided structures. Man, that's going to come back many times. Heptagonal structures rising about 30 meters above a large body of water. At each corner of the structure, there is a water inlet that swirls rapidly down an unseen spout, while on the upper edge of one of the flat sides, a door slides open and the transport ship slips inside. The structure didn't catch me, as remarkable as the water inlets, and I had some questions about that. I gotta know, what do you guys think? Do you think that this is? I'm going with that the whole facility is hydroelectrically powered, and that these are the inlets for the turbines. Andy, you had a different thought.
I did, based on Alcatraz and how they put it out there, and the water is really deadly.
Yeah.
A bunch of whirlpools, if you were to jump off there, do not increase your chances of escape.
That is also true. Side effect of
maybe
turbines.
It's multi-purpose.
Maybe. The other one that I thought of was the water is being shunted off as a means of cooling something.
Maybe.
Whether there's a massive heat source below, like whatever's powering. Maybe it's not hydro powered. Maybe it's some other kind of power source. Maybe it's nuclear powered and the water is being used for cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
My leading theory is hydroelectric power. I want to know what you guys have to think. Let us know in the comments. What do you think these water inlets are around these factory structures on Narkina 5? Well, our prisoner transport is essentially an unarmed version or variation of the Imperial landing boat that we've seen before. We saw it in both The Mandalorian and Kenobi. It is definitely within the same family of ships, minus the cannons on the front, but has that similar sort of front ramp that drops down on the nose. I thought it was a nice little nod. Well, back at the central office, Colonel Yularen presides over a meeting of the sector supervisors. This is the second one he's been in attendance for. Sitting in front of him lays the damaged Starpath unit recovered from Ferrix. Funny, it didn't look like that the last time we saw it.
No.
Apparently it didn't fare so well in the explosion.
No, the building falling on it probably has something to do with that.
Maybe. So much for being a sealed unit.
Yep. It's not worth as much anymore.
Dedra remarks how it was stolen from the Steerguard Navy Yard a year ago. Now, Cassian doesn't say on the nose that he was the one to go and get it. He just has that argument with Bix about how she thinks he's been holding out on him.
Yeah, and
But
quite literally,
he tells Luthen, or at least he intimates to Luthen that he just walked in and got it.
Yeah.
Do we think he's been sitting on this for a year?
Waiting for
the right
time,
the right deal to come around?
Yeah, the right deal or an emergency.
Interesting.
A rainy day fund, if you will.
Maybe. She says it was stolen a year ago, but she can't say exactly when, as the ranking authorities at Steerguard were too afraid to report it stolen and instead chose to attempt to hide it. Not that it worked. Colonel Yularen stares down at the datapad in front of him, presumably reading Dedra's report. He bids her to continue as he reads, and Dedra activates a hollow image, and we see Cassian's old mugshot. He's a couple years younger and clean shaven. And she recounts how the Starpath unit was stolen by him. And she also points out that he is wanted for the murder of 2 corporate security officers, and that the Starpath unit was left behind as he escaped arrest. Dedra goes on to say that Cassian was in the act of transferring the unit to someone that they have now labeled as Axis. Axis because she believes that this person is central to an organized rebel effort to acquire specialized Imperial gear. While staring down at the pad, Colonel Yularen absently remarks that Dedra has quite a wish list as he reads it, which includes a full comnet, a full garrison tech package, a Series 9 Spectrum surveillance, and local agent funding, as well as a code droid. There's some interesting things happening here. So one is, remember the last episode that he was in?
Yes.
When they enacted those emergency measures, he was like, nobody in this room should have any trouble getting resources. And now here he is, like a bean counter. He makes a line here about it being expensive, and of course she counters that. But what a contrast to what he said before.
Keeps everyone on their toes.
I guess so. Now, Series 9 Spectrum surveillance. This is interesting. I kind of, I'm always looking this stuff up because one, I need to know, is there an existing Star Wars reference to this stuff? Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. And if there isn't, is there a real world connection here? Well, yes, there is. And Spectrum surveillance in the real world refers to monitoring of real-time identification of illegal or unlicensed wireless communication signals.
Huh.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is going to come back in a major way later in this episode.
Huh.
Dedra informs the colonel that everything that she's asked for, it's all ready to go, and that if someone on Ferrix is talking, they need to be listening.
She's not wrong.
She is not wrong. In sharp contrast to his assurances that no one in the room would have trouble securing any Army or Navy assets, Colonel Yularen calls her request a large investment. And Dedra shoots back that the cost is a fraction of the cost of the lost and stolen technology.
Are they factoring in the Eldani money too yet?
Well, that's the other one too. Well, that's caught the colonel's attention as he lifts his gaze from the pad that he's been reading from to ask her, what do you want to do? You want to drill down on Ferrix and find the thief and what comes next? And Dedra tells him plainly that it is to identify Axis. And she calls this the first best lead they've had. To her benefit, Major Partagaz interrupts to tell Colonel Yularen that Dedra has convinced him that the activities of the person that they've designated as Axis are widespread across the galaxy, and that even though they don't know who or where they are, what they do know about this person is troubling. Interesting take on Partagaz here for him to get involved, you know.
To kind of go to bat for her.
Do you think that he was?
I think so.
It comes superficially, it comes across that way, I think.
Yeah. But if she's on the right track,
Remember
And
what I said on the last meeting where he
yeah,
was like,
if
watch
she
your
does
back.
good, he does good.
That's right. So,
So
I mean, is it self-serving?
Hmm.
I think it's a little A, a little B.
I think so.
Well, Dedra asserts that Ferrix was Axis' first mistake, and that drilling down is exactly what she wants to do, to find the man named Cassian Andor and to start hunting for Axis.
And that's what you do, right? Like you go for the guy you know on the bottom, and then you go up the ladder.
Absolutely. If you're looking at this image, no, they are not breakdancing.
It does look painful though.
You know how many times I paused on this, like just to look at the expressions, and I gotta give props to Diego Luna here
Yeah.
for pulling that off, for committing to the funk,
Yeah.
as it were. Remember the was it the hours of Zemo in the bar?
Yes.
I could see this being put to music and just on a
Yep.
loop. On Narkina 5, Cassian and the other barefoot prisoners are ushered off the transport where they're met by 3 guards. The guards are dressed in the same black uniforms as the transport guard, except these guys are wearing what I would call gray snowboard boots with bright orange soles.
Mm-hmm.
Good use of off-the-shelf snowboard boots. And it's for very good reason that they wear them. The lead guard informs the men that they are presently standing inside a factory, and they have been identified as labor worthy. The guard tells them that they will be transferred shortly to their workrooms where they will receive more instructions from their floor manager. But he pauses for a moment, essentially to send a clear message and taunt the prisoners that even though the guards are not armed, the floor of the entire facility is, in fact, electrified, a point that he makes by administering what he calls a level 1 shock. 1 of 3, I think he puts it.
Yep.
Well, the prisoners all begin to convulse as they fall to the floor, and the guard presses the shock for several seconds before releasing it and saying that this was just a level 1 shock out of 3. And then the other guards order the men back to their feet while the lead guard walks away. Well, back in his interrogation room, Cyril Karn reads Lieutenant Blevins' report on Ferrix. When the door slides open and Dedra strides in, she asks him what's missing from the report. Cyril lists several details, including criminal negligence from his commanding officer, lack of imperial authority on Ferrix, and the fact that Cassian had what he calls an organized local cadre of accomplices, and that none of that is detailed in the report. But Dedra's not interested in that. No, instead, she asks about the older man that was seen with Cassian fleeing the scene. She asks what details about him are missing, and Cyril tries to offer a better description, but the color of his cloak and boots is just not enough for Dedra, and she paces in front of the two-way mirror with an annoyed look on her face as she kind of looks through the glass, sort of at Hirt, who's watching.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Cyril, still trying to endear himself to Dedra, says that he heard the man's voice and he would recognize it if he heard it again. But Dedra has heard enough. Dismissing him as nothing more than an annoyance, she tells him to stop filing requests for Cassian Andor. And if he complies with that, she will inform the Bureau of Standards that he was of service to the Empire today. Well, the camera shifts to the antechamber that's behind the mirror as we see Dedra move towards the exit of the interrogation room. And when the door slides open, Cyril, still seated in his chair, shouts out, "I was a good deputy inspector." Dedra turns back, and Cyril actually boldly gets up from the chair to face her. He admits that in the course of his duties that he was overambitious, but to his own credit, he did solve a double murder and found the killer in 2 days. And he acted because the window of opportunity that he had to apprehend that murderer was rapidly closing. Stealing his jaw, Cyril lifts his chin and says, "Service to the Empire. You said it yourself." Rhetorically, he asks her, "Can one ever be too aggressive in preserving order?" Having heard enough, Dedra wishes him luck and turns to leave for the second time. And for the second time, gives pause again as Cyril says it's clear to him that she needs Andor in order to find his accomplice. And it's also clear to Cyril that whatever it is she's chasing is more important than the death of 2 corporate security guards. Cyril professes that he's a valuable asset to her. But Dedra has actually had enough this time as she steps towards him and she offers a very clear warning. Should he raise the alarm one more time, it won't be her that he's talking to. And then she departs the interrogation room while Cyril stands there staring at one of the mirrors and sighs. Well, back on Narkina 5, Cassian, now dressed in a white prison uniform, is escorted through a control station on the way to his work floor. His attention is drawn to a rack full of the gray and orange isolated boots.
I'm going to need them at some
Sorry,
point.
insulated boots. But a guard threatens him with what he calls a zap rod and orders him to put his hands on his head, a movement that they commonly refer to as on program. Interesting little thing here right from the get-go that Cassian immediately picks up on the boot thing.
Yeah.
And then they make a point, like they literally have him like crane, like, huh? As he's staring at the boots. And you can't help but think that these boots are definitely going to play into whatever.
At some point they will.
Yeah. If there's going to be a breakout, the boots are definitely involved.
Yep.
Another guard sitting at a console questions where the other guard's partner is. The man says that there was a tech problem on level 1. And the console operator remarks that guard knows that delivery takes priority over tech and he can't just not show up. Well, the guard reassures the operator that he'll be here any second. That's another thing. There's a labor shortage, and it's not the workforce, it's the Imperials.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, the boot thing and the fact that there are holes in their security network in this facility
with people trying to cover multiple spots.
Right. That is those
That's a
two
window right there.
Yeah. All right. The console operator remarks to the guard, that's not good enough. The transfer that they are about to do was on the schedule, and they're already behind as there are other deliveries waiting. Delivery, I guess that's the nice way of putting people coming in. Yeah. Delivery. Again, boiling them down to the dehumanizing of all of the of people.
Product.
Yeah, exactly.
Components for the machine.
As I said earlier, shrewdly, Cassian has been paying attention, something that the guards actually take notice of, and they snap at him to keep his head and eyes to the front. Well, just then, the missing guard shows up. He apologizes for being late, explaining that they've been short-handed on the other floor. He says they had to pull another man out from the 4th level, and he got there as soon as he could. Now, with everything in place, the door opens and Cassian is ushered forward onto a lift high above an open workshop. Down on the workshop floor, dozens of men, all on program, stand clustered around work tables with power tools suspended over top of them. And then the lift descends and Cassian is ordered onto the work floor. Well, no sooner does Cassian hit the floor than this burly voice barks out, "This is Unit 52D. Level 5, Room 2, and D for day shift." The man continues that there are 7 levels in the factory, each containing 7 rooms, and each room has 7 tables, while each table has 7 men. And again, our buildings were also 7-sided. Mm-hmm. This whole thing with 7s, I'm gonna touch on the 7 thing. I've got a bunch of notes and sort of ideas on it. Is it too early to go there now?
I don't think so.
Do you want to have that now? Let's save it. Let's save it to the end because it keeps coming back. So let's just let it percolate for a little while. But let me just put this out there for people who are listening and watching. The whole idea of 7s. What do you think about the significance of 7s, and what does it mean here? Because it's an interesting conundrum when you contrast it against the thing that they're making. because it's the only thing here that's not a factor of 7. It's 6.
Yeah.
It's weird. Although they are stacked up on those carts 7 at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Something I didn't notice until my third watch through. All right. The man dressed in the same, the man is dressed in the same white prison uniform as the others. He strides forward while the rest of the men remain on program. He introduces himself as Kino Loy, and he says that he is the 5-2D unit manager, and the 49 men in this room, which now also includes Cassian, all report to him. And of course, our man Kino Loy, it is Andy freaking Serkis. I don't know if I really have to dig deep on this one for anybody. I mean, certainly we're all familiar with all of his amazing performance captured roles.
Chances are you've seen something with him.
That's right. We've got Gollum from Lord of the Rings. We've got Caesar from the most recent Planet of the Apes films. Ulysses Claw in the MCU.
Yep.
Alfred in the new Batman. He was also, this is a return to Star Wars for him. He was the voice of Supreme Leader Snoke. This one I didn't know. He played the voice of King Bohan in a video game called Heavenly Sword. Are you familiar with Heavenly Sword?
I am.
Heavenly Sword, which he also directed all of the cinematics and wrote all of the cinematics for Heavenly Sword. I did not know that. Other directing credits for Andy Serkis include the Netflix film Mowgli Legend of the Jungle, which is a pretty interesting take on the Jungle Book, as well as Venom Let There Be Carnage. On top of writing the cinematic sequences for Heavenly Sword, he also came up with the idea for the music video for Coldplay's Adventure of a Lifetime. Now, that's the video with all the CGI chimps.
Yeah.
And I love it. But yeah, he wrote the story idea for that.
Nice.
So good on Andy to be back in Star Wars.
Yeah. In front of the camera, behind it, he's doing well.
Yeah, he's everywhere. Well, the guard leaves the work floor, and Kino orders the men off program, and they all drop their hands and go back to work. He bids Cassian to walk with him while he explains further. Now, work shifts are 12 hours long, and productivity is encouraged, and evaluation is constant. We actually hear that a couple times throughout. Kino grabs a data pad and he asks Cassian, "Can you read?" Which is interesting, the thought that there are people in the Star Wars universe that cannot read. Yeah. When Cassian affirms that, yes, he can, Kino shows him the pad displaying the progress of all the tables in the room. He explains that Cassian has been assigned to table number 5, and table number 5 is behind because he's not there doing his job. Kino explains that the running tally on the display is the score for all of the other rooms on this level. And while Cassian plays against the other tables in the room, Kino plays against all of the other rooms. It is a competition-based system with both reward and punishment. But most importantly, Kino remarks that he is just 249 days away from his freedom, and he has a free hand in how he runs this room. He's become accustomed to being in the top 3 rooms of the level, and he encourages Cassian to make sure it stays that way. If Cassian is sick or injured, he's to speak directly to Kino, and if Cassian has a problem with another inmate, Kino says he will know it before Cassian does. Everything else, like morale and well-being, is to be kept with himself, and Kino finishes with, "Don't ever slow up my line." He's an angry man.
He is.
He is an angry man. 249 days. Keep in mind, everybody's sentence doubled a month ago.
Yes.
So that was what, 120, say 125 days?
I don't think so, because he's already room manager, right? So how long has he been here to go up to room manager?
That's true.
And like, he's operating like he will be getting out in 249 days. But since everything's changed, he's going to be in for a rude awakening when somebody says, "You're not leaving."
I do think that the 249 is the revised number. I think it is the doubled number.
The double of whatever he had left.
The PORD legislation.
Yeah.
That's already come into effect. They talk about it later on.
Yeah.
Ulof says we're paying. We're suffering because of it.
Yeah.
when they ask if he's heard about it. Because Jembok says, last month everybody's number just doubled one day, randomly doubled. So presumably Kino's as well.
Yeah.
Which is a real tragedy because at one point you can see there's one of the displays says 74. So there's a guy who had like a month, 2 months left on his sentence, and next thing you know, like you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then no.
Yeah.
All right. Stepping over the table, Cassian identifies himself as Keef. Keef Girga, another lame name if I've ever heard one. Keef Girga. Every time I hear it, I think of Grief Karga. Yeah. I mean, how do you not? And a man named Jembok welcomes him. Jembok goes around the table and he introduces the other workers. We have Zal, Taga, Yulaf, Ham, and Melshi. Now, they're worried about the productivity, and Jembok asserts that given they are a man short, they'll get a pass. And they add that it's been done before, but Taga points out, well, that was months ago. While Melshi points out that their table is behind by 10 units, and a pass for them at this point is a pipe dream. There's only 42 minutes left in the shift, and Zal says to Cassian, hey, new guy, prepare to fry. In a display of basic human decency, Melshi corrects him with Keef. That's his name, Keef. With no time to talk, the men turn their focus back to the cog-like equipment that they're assembling, and they quicken their pace. Jembok instructs Cassian to watch him, as he'll be doing that job tomorrow, while Jembok will serve as what he calls the swingman. Despairingly, the men notice that Kino has been called to the comm unit on the wall, and an electronically altered voice announces that the shift productivity level is unacceptable. Kino shouts that for the next 39 minutes, so for the rest of the shift, it will be a sprint, while the electronic voice reminds everyone that the least productive table will be disciplined. Well, the buzzer sounds and the men spring into action as a fresh component is raised from underneath the table. The men scramble for smaller components as they fit pins and then rivet them into place. Kino shouts, get busy or get fried. All the while, Cassian watches, dumbfounded at the flurry of motion throughout the room. The electronic voice. Did you watch the credits this week?
I did, but I didn't.
The electronic voice has a credit.
Really?
It has a name.
Kevin?
No, it's not Kevin. Let me just start by, did you see Tron Legacy?
Not started to back yet, no.
Did you see it far enough where Sam Flynn finally gets captured and they're disposing everybody where they're going to go? You're going to go to the game grid.
Yeah.
What's he say? Rectified. That voice, rectified. Does it not sound like the voice of the computer?
Yeah, similar.
Okay. Keep this in mind that we're going to talk metaphorically a little bit later about certain things. The voice is credited as the voice of God. Is that not like, the voice of God?
Wonder how much it costs to get that.
I don't know. I don't really. So the bigger picture, the bigger thing here, the bigger issue is, I mean, it's the implication of God and what God means in this situation.
Yeah.
Like, is there an irony that it's it's white, like that whole like symbology associating heaven with, white fluffy clouds. And,
yeah.
But I mean, this is anything but heaven.
No, this is efficient. This is fear driven.
Yeah. The voice of God. All right. That's going to come back a little bit later.
And they're super disciplined, right? Like when he yells on program, like they all snap to formation.
They absolutely do. I mean, that's another thing. We'll talk about that a little bit later too, about how the workforce works. Yeah. Let's talk about our cast of characters here. We have Jembok. That's actor Brian Bovell. He played Leo Valentine in 139 episodes of Hollyoaks. Our man Zal. That's Joseph Davies. He played Private Stokes in the 1917 the war picture.
I saw that.
Taga, that's Tom Reed. He plays character Ahmed Khan for 22 episodes of NYC 22, police drama.
Hmm.
And then Ham. By the way, does Ham look like someone who's about to go to become unhinged?
Maybe a little bit.
Ham looks like a madman just waiting, like he's going to be the one to give you the shiv.
Yeah.
That's Clemens Schick. Now, he was in Casino Royale. Do you remember the character? Sorry, Krat. He was bald. He was Lashif's right-hand man.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So interesting. That's another Star Wars connection because Lashif was also in Star Wars. He was in Rogue One because that's Jyn Erso's dad.
Yeah.
So now we've got Lashif's right-hand man. Maybe he will be the Shiv.
Maybe.
Who knows? Olaf. Kim pointed this out. That's McTilberg from The Fifth Element.
Nice.
He's also the broker in Guardians of the Galaxy when Peter goes to sell the
power gem.
Yeah, exactly, the Power Stone. And of course, Melshi, that is Duncan Powell, and that is the same Sergeant Ruscott Melshi from Rogue One. So it's safe to say that Cassian and Melshi are probably getting out of here together. I don't know what that says for everybody else, but
I don't have high hopes for Olaf.
I don't either. He looked pretty rough.
I think he's like Kino goes on to say, the guards only come in to, bring new people in or take people out.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to get taken out.
I hate to say it, but I think you're right. I mean, there's a bit of desperation in his voice when he talks about how they're suffering.
Yeah.
And again, he's the oldest. He's the most frail.
Yeah. He's getting up there and he's starting to show signs.
Yeah.
At least when you're watching them work, he's showing distress.
You start wondering about sort of what did each man do.
Yeah.
I know that Jembok asks Cassian and he kind of gives him the whole nothing. And what does Jembok do? Oh, we're getting a lot about that lately.
Yeah.
People doing nothing. But yeah. I mean, conceivably, some of these guys, they don't actually, they make a point not to tell you. I mean, you could have had a parking ticket and I could be a murderer.
Yeah.
But we were both deemed labor worthy.
Yep.
Interesting. Well, back on Coruscant, Mon Mothma and Perrin stand at the bar of their Senate residence. The bartender plucks a worm-like creature from a bowl and he drops it into Perrin's drink, causing this weird chemical reaction.
It's like a worm bath bomb.
Well, the worm, it presumably dies because it stops moving. Yeah, absolutely it does. Yeah, Mon Mothma declines the worm, so Perrin says, "Oh, I'll take hers." And Perrin says, "Well, you used to like it." But then Mon says that she was just better at pretending. And Perrin says, "Well, I find that hard to believe." And at that point, she offers him a toast. Sagrona. Now, there is no reference to the word, no Star Wars reference anyway, to Sagrona. However, there is a real world reference. And Sagrona is a type of Chianti. Now, Chiantis are wines that are produced within Tuscany in Italy, which in and of itself may not be a whole lot interesting. However, if we add in the way that Chandrillans in general, like Tay Kolma here and Perrin and Mon all dress, that high sense of fashion, are we inferring that maybe Chandrilla is like the Italy of Star Wars?
Maybe.
Although the bartender will later refer to those worm creatures as squigs, as will Lita as well. Now, squigs, according to the 2003 RPG sourcebook Star Wars Galactic Campaign Guide, was a species of fish native to Naboo, of which several Gungan families were named after.
Oh, no.
I don't think these are fish. To me, they are basically the mezcal worm of Star Wars, I guess. Maybe. Who knows? Worms. All right. Perrin asks her, what are we toasting? And Mon offers a quick night. With an "I'll drink to that," Perrin clinks glasses with his wife and asks her what's on the agenda tonight. Mon says that she needs votes to stall the Emperor's latest overreach. And just then, Tay Kolma approaches the bar, and the three make small talk. Seeing the traditional Chandrillan libation, Tay says he'll have one, and Perrin orders a round of 3. But Mon declines hers, and Perrin jokes that Mon is working tonight. And Tay says, well, there's lots to be done. Now, Perrin, being more conversational than we've seen him before, says with a chuckle that it's not charity she's working on tonight, but rather she's trying to save the Empire from the Emperor. Well, Tay remarks that the new legislation is definitely having an effect. And Perrin, oh my gosh, what did I say there? Wow. Yeah, Perrin says that the rebels, they should have thought about that before they blew up Aldhani. Remember at the outset, I said that there's
the purple monkey dishwasher,
some perceptions and maybe sort of the way people see things. Did anything at Aldhani blow up?
No, it did not.
So is this a case of the telephone game,
or did the Empire blow it up and say the rebels did it?
Well, that's entirely within. I mean, I could totally see the Empire.
We haven't seen it since. So
we haven't, yeah.
We could go back and find that it's been like scorched earth.
Right. Specifically, I was saying here, the newscast that we saw, the newscaster never made any reference to damage. Just talked about people being detained and being interrogated, but that's it. They never said that there was damage.
Yeah.
So who knows? Well, with fresh drinks, the trio toast again. This time it's Sargona Tima, another Chandrilan toast, apparently. Perrin wishes the two good luck in feeding the galaxy, and then he steps off to, as he puts it, feed himself, while Tay offers a joke. Charity begins at home, which I thought was kind of funny. Perrin, wow. He was really chatty this episode. I
felt very uncomfortable with his mannerisms this episode. I got a speculation for later, but I similar to how Tim reacted with Nix and Cassian.
Yeah.
I think it might be the same thing here.
I wondered that as well. And then I had a sort of a counter thought towards that. Later in the conversation, they talk about Mon becoming a senator at 16. And by that time, they had already been married for a year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I wasn't really interested in girls until about age 15. Which really didn't leave a whole lot of room to get yourself into trouble, like by having like a serious girlfriend. So was Tay and Mon an item at one time when they were kids? I kind of wondered that the last episode, and I still do, but I am less inclined to think that they were now.
More just good friends.
Yeah, probably. More just childhood friends. Yeah. Okay. With Perrin removed from the conversation, Tay cuts right to it. He's got some bad news. That the new banking regulations are making it difficult for him, and there are new imperial auditors being assigned to Chandrila, and depending on where those auditors are placed, things could get worse for him. Well, just then Lita approaches awkwardly and remarks that she's already been introduced to Tay. We've met already. Mon tells her that her father's been looking for her, and Lita makes a point of saying to Tay that you're here all the time now. Lita's picking up on it in a way that suggests maybe there's some impropriety going on.
Yeah, and if she's picking up on it,
if your teenage daughter thinks you're messing around,
yeah.
So that begs the question: is that going to be part of the sacrifice?
Maybe
Mon's sacrifice to the cause.
Maybe.
Is she going to walk away from her family? Because let's put it this way: if Lita confides in her father that she thinks that that's what's going on, and the two of them get together and they call her on it, are you messing around with Tay? What's her option?
She can't tell him what she's doing.
Does she? Yeah, exactly. She's no. I'm forming a rebellion to take on the Empire, or yes, I'm having an affair.
She might use it as cover.
Having an affair.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't that speak to her personal sacrifice then of like, I don't know about you, but I was quite surprised to, and maybe that's just the way that we've been presented Star Wars, but like the idea that Mon Mothma had a family, had a husband and a daughter, that was like, whoa. It never really dawned on me until it was in my face watching it going, oh, wow, she's a real.
There was a life before
yeah. Which could make it all the more, the way that she speaks about how, many Bothans died to bring us this information. Like she has this, like, when we see her later on, it's almost like a sorrow. the way that she talks.
No, she says to Luthen, like, I've got so much to lose.
Yeah,
and
she does.
She's not just talking about money or freedom.
Yeah. Well, Lita points out, hey, you're drinking squigs, and she calls it disgusting. And cheerily, Teo says, well, that's the point. Lita looks at the two awkwardly before she walks off. And after she does, Mon asks Tay about the money that she's already moved. She says that not everything is tucked away. And Tay reassures her that they'll find a way to explain it. Doesn't say how,
but they'll figure it out.
Just we'll give it the old college try. That could really backfire.
Yeah.
Mon questions, are we just going to give up on hiding it now? And Tay says, well, how much are we worried about? His eyebrows raise when she says, well, it's 400,000. But before they can continue, they're interrupted by Senator Dow. She says that she was just on her way to look for him, and Dow remarks how Perrin told him that she was hiding all the squigs, that awful drink with the mescal worm. Mon playfully retorts that, I forgot how Chandrillan you were at heart. And Dow fires back that he forgot how sweet she was when she's looking for votes. Senator Dow, that's actor Hugh Sachs. Fans of Bridgerton may recognize him as Brimsley, for which he has appeared in 14 episodes. Well, back on Narkina 5, Cassian, along with the other workers from 5-2D, stand in a closed bridge that has large windows running down both sides. The bridge is divided into 2 lanes separated by this waist-high divider. And Cassian and the other men from his table, they look like shocked and disheveled as they stand there while another line of men facing the opposite direction await the shift change. Kino paces up and down the line, shouting for the men to keep it down. And about halfway, he meets the incoming shift supervisor, and the two of them share a nod as they wave at each other. Craning his head around the man in front of him, Cassian spots Taga, who's gesturing out the window on their side of the tunnel in what looks to be some form of sign language. Looking outside the window, Cassian looks across an open expanse, spotting another man in a different enclosed bridge who's signaling back. Shifting his gaze, Cassian sees that there are multiple bridges that span the gap from the outer perimeter to the central hub. And just then, a buzzer sounds and both lines begin to move. Interesting that they've developed their own sign language in prison.
Prison news system.
Without ever having been in direct contact with each other.
Yeah.
Well,
they might have known each other on the outside.
Possibly. That's entirely possible.
Just
I never thought about
waiting to move, and you look out the window one day. Oh, I know him.
The guy that the other guy that got sentenced to Belsavis. Did we see him again? I never made a point to look for him again.
I didn't think to look for him
because
either.
the question is, did that guy, because he came from Niamos, did he end up in the same? No, I guess he wouldn't, because there was only one man short.
Well, for that particular.
Yeah, so they wouldn't have ended up in the same shift, or certainly not in the same room anyway. Yeah. Who knows? Interesting thought though. Alrighty. Back on Coruscant, Mon Mothma mingles with a group of senators, which includes Senator Dow. The conversation revolves around where Senator. Oh my gosh. Sorry. The conversation revolves around the Emperor, with Senator Slorda calling him frustrating, too easily provoked, and overreactive. Another senator, Senator Tinar, remarks that's an understatement. And a third senator remarks that, he does say what he means, but Tinar is quick to point out that they are referring to legislation and not speeches. This sequence was really frustrating trying to identify people because the third guy, the guy who looks the most lapdoggish, the one I'm talking about, is uncredited.
Aww.
He's uncredited. And then the other ones are just like, they are so minor. I didn't even put a slide in for them because I don't think we're going to see much of them again.
Probably not.
All right.
But again, it speaks to the public perception of Palpatine,
of the
right?
Emperor. Yeah, that he's great at making speeches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they have no clue what's really going on at the top.
Well, at that point, Mon enters the conversation herself, and she says, well, what does he mean? What is public order? Senator Dow adds that it is an awfully big box, while Senator Vivine, I'm not sure how to say that, the lady, remarks that, well, the Emperor's primary charge is to protect us. The funny thing is the way that she says it, she says to protect us. And there's enough vagueness there that you wonder, like, is she talking about
the upper 1%?
Yeah, is she talking about the population of the Empire, or like the Coruscanti elite?
I would think that.
Like the people in this room.
Yeah. Because they're not going to get ticketed for walking their dogs.
No, probably not. And get 6 years in prison for it, or 5 years in prison. Well, she adds that the PORD legislation will do that. Mon questions how much protection is enough, and Vivin remarks that they all know what too little looks like. Any idea what that means?
I don't know.
What too little? We all know what too little looks like.
Unless they mean like the droid war.
I don't know. The entirety of the Clone War? I don't know. Maybe. Is it a reference to, the public perception that the Jedi tried to overthrow the government?
Well, that's how they spun it.
Yeah, but the question is, how many people still have a working knowledge of the Jedi?
Yeah.
Have they
being drummed out of them?
Right. It's being erased from history, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, Tinar remarks that it's surveillance and prosecution without limit. And the fourth, our nameless senator, questions, what is there to fear if you're not doing anything wrong? It's a typical answer.
Mm-hmm.
Mon plainly says that she fears his definition of wrong, while Vivin says, these are dangerous times. And Tinar mockingly repeats it, dangerous times. But the unnamed senator questions, are they not? And Mon asks him if he feels like he's under a threat. Well, he breaks the tension by holding up his drink, and with a smile, he says yes, adding that right here, right now, he's at great risk of ingesting too much of this nourishing Chandrilan hospitality, of which Mon just smiles at him. I just call him Jerky Jerkface.
Yeah.
I don't like him. He looks too smug.
Yep. Looks like he's going to loosen his tongue with a few more of those libations.
That's right. With the squibs. The mezcal worm. As we cut to an empty hallway back on Narkina 5, we see that it's the prisoners' living quarters, and the doors slide open, and Cassian and the entire shift all file in. Cassian looks around trying to take it all in, and Zal, who's walking right behind him, points to the lighting on the floor. He says that the white light means cold and red light means hot. And if he should see the lights flashing, he has exactly 7 seconds to get into his cell. He says there are sensors in the floor, so if 2 men occupy one cell, it's what he calls an instant fry. So you have to be in your own. You can't.
No hanging out and chatting.
You can't shack up with a friend. Well, the line comes to a halt, and Kino orders the men to fall out. He then instructs Jembok to show Cassian to his own cell. It's a pretty Spartan living quarters in same stark white as the work floor and everything else in the facility for that matter. But the room does have everything that he will need, most of which is fitted into these little slots on the back wall. There's a bed, a toilet, water, plate, spoon, a nightlight, and what looks like a modern Philips rotary shaver, all attached to the back wall. Cassian asks about food, and Jembok pulls one of the tubes from the back wall. He says, you can have as much as you want, adding that the Empire likes us healthy and fueled. Food as fuel. Isn't that something?
Mm-hmm.
He says, don't worry. In time, you'll learn to eat it. Doesn't even say you'll learn to like it.
No,
you'll learn to eat it. Ugh. Jembach remarks, well, that was a tough first day, noting that Cassian was fried not once, but twice.
That's one part we don't get to see, right?
He gets fried at the
he gets fried on entry, but then I'm assuming they get
the table did not.
Yeah,
they were the low table, so they got it again. And optimistically, Jembach smiles and says, "Who knows? Maybe in a few shifts we can pull a winner." And he says that winners actually get taste added to their food, and the top table gets flavor. So, like nutrient paste from a tube, and if you win, you get taste. If you're the top table, you get flavor.
I wonder if it's the essence of flavor like Bender found in Futurama.
Who knows? Yeah. Maybe it's never mind. I don't even want to go there. What do they do with the bodies?
Soylent Green?
Yeah.
Well, it's recycling,
It's true.
Making use of all that product.
Yeah. Conversely, the last place gets fried.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as he goes to leave the cell, he tells Cassian, this will need to be cleaned every day. And he points to a screen on the wall and he says, that's your tab. On the display, it reads 2,189, a figure that we have determined to be 2,189 days.
Yeah.
Which prompts Jembach to say, what did you do? Cassian shakes his head and he answers, nothing. And with his arms folded, Jembach nods as he says, oh, a lot of that lately. Well, by now, the other men from Cassian's table have taken an interest in him, and Melchi blurts out, ask him already. Jembach says that everyone's number doubled last month because of the PORD legislation. They think that because Cassian is new, that he'll have news from the outside world about it. News that the men are pretty eager to hear. But Cassian apologizes. He says he doesn't know anything about it or the recent rebel activity. Now, incorrectly, Jembach points out that the rebels slaughtered an entire garrison and burned it down. So there's that telephone game again.
Or false flag thing.
Or that's the way it's been presented. Do you think that the Empire is giving them news? I don't believe that they are.
I don't think they're giving them much of anything.
You have nothing to barter with, so you couldn't even have a scam with one of the guards.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like there is literally, I give you some of my food paste. No.
We got flavor this week.
Who knows? I mean, yeah, I'm not even going to go there. Otherwise, the show's going to get really dark.
Well, if it's like any other prison, at some point you're going to have someone on the inside who still has connections to the outside.
Maybe.
And go call this one. And they'll give you
maybe
X amount of credits.
We don't know. Yeah, we really don't know if like the criminal enterprise of the galaxy has a hand in the prison system. So
I would assume so with the amount of corruption going on within the Empire itself.
Yeah. I just don't see what at this level, what does an inmate have to offer a guard to get any kind of perk?
I mean, you could always offer
themselves.
Favors.
Yeah, well, I was going to say the show could get really dark really fast.
Yeah.
We've already dipped into it with what do they do with the bodies? we could ask the same question in different contexts. What do they do with the bodies?
We'll get them a pack of smokes.
Right.
Or death sticks.
That's true. So Zal says it doesn't matter. And Yulof shakes his head as he kind of goes on about, we're the ones getting punished. Well, Melchi gets up and he approaches Cassian with some advice. He says, never look at the number because no matter what it says, it doesn't matter because you're not leaving until the Empire doesn't want you anymore. Well, at the same time, Kino is now taking a notice of the gaggle that's formed around Cassian's cell, and he angrily storms down the hallway to break it up, slamming Melchi into the wall on the other side of the hallway. Kino looks him dead in the eye and says, that's enough. And then the buzzer sounds, and the voice of God instructs everyone to return to their cells immediately, giving them 30 seconds until a red floor. Kino makes a remark to Cassian about, hope you don't sleepwalk. And when Cassian asks him why, Kino coldly says, you'll find out. And then everyone goes into their cells, and the floor lights switch to red.
Now, I think Kino was very ticked here because Melchi's opinion directly contradicts what he's
that's so true.
On, right?
I'm almost out of here.
Like,
Don't you go saying so shit left, like that.
And you're going to tell me they're not letting me go till I'm done with me? No.
Well, and again, this is sort of some of the, and I should have taken a better look maybe, but you don't get a really good look at all of this, all the displays.
No.
But I mean, Cassian's is like the biggest one we've seen, 2,000 some days.
Yeah.
What did some of these guys do? How long have they been around for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, are they just going to get longer with, you know, the Empire needing more whatever constructed?
Well, listen, I don't want to change subjects too much, but we got some new Star Wars this week. Besides this week's episode of Andor, we got all 6 episodes of Tales of the Jedi.
Very good stuff.
Which we will be covering, by the way. Just it's going to come a little bit later once we get through all this. If you've been watching Tales of the Jedi, then you are brutally aware of the fact that we've had two major retcons in that series. The death of Yaddle has been retconned, as well as the 6th Inquisitor. That one I'm not entirely happy about. However, I digress. There's a good possibility that we got a 3rd and possibly even a 4th retcon this week. The first one here, the 3rd one, the first one of our show, comes in the form of Cassian's display. I asked this week earlier on our social media. I put this image up, and I said there's something wrong with the display in Cassian's cell, and I asked, do you know what it is? We didn't get any answers.
No, we did not.
Well, Cassian was sentenced to 6 years in prison, which, you know what? That's a round, neat 2,190 days if you use our own earthly calendar of 365 days a year, which means 1 day for processing and transport to get him here, because he's just worked his first shift.
It would be 2,191, because there would be a leap year in there, or possibly 2.
Maybe.
If you're going by,
if we're using our calendar. Yes. Yeah. But it's a very convenient number. 2,189. Oh yeah. I mean, you just take it as road. Yep. That's 6 years.
Yeah, it comes out to like 5.94444.
But there's a problem. Canonically, a standard galactic year in Star Wars is 368 days. Which means if we use the same processing time of 1 day, then Cassian's display should actually read 2,207 days. So if you want to know the reference for that, the the DeAgostini Millennium Falcon Build-A-Kit. This was kind of like, I don't know if you've seen there's a Ghostbuster, there's an Ecto kit from Eagle Moss. They did a Back to the Future DeLorean time machine. So basically they send you every month, they send you some kit parts and they send you a magazine. And the magazine serves not only as the instructions for how to build that month's parts, but it also serves as a little window into an aspect of the universe. And DeAgostini, 100 issues, by the way, published, each one being a different galaxy guide. Number, where is it here? I put it in my notes.
61.
Number 61 just happens to be galactic time and dates where that's established. And that's a 2014 reference. That is after
the Disney takeover.
So that is a canon reference. So the big question here is, did Pablo Hidalgo and the story group make a mistake here, and this is in fact wrong? Or is this a retcon, and we are now saying that a Star Wars year is 365 days? What do you think?
Maybe.
I don't think. I think it's a mistake.
I probably can, but we could probably fix it. Like, suppose that transport doesn't go into hyperspace and it takes, what is it, like 20 days to get from Niemos to
Narkina 5?
Yeah.
No, maybe.
And then technically that would count for it. I mean, he's in custody.
I suppose so.
But again, like with the hyperspace travel, you get there in 10 minutes.
I just thought the 2189, that's 1 day short of 6 years. Yeah. So to me, it's like, oh, they're telling me that it only took 1 day to get here. Yeah. Or, his incarceration started
the moment he got processed.
Right. So then the other question, and it's not really a big deal. It's like, does the display change the next day, or does it change after the shift? Is it a shift display? What is it? Is it a day counter? Is it a shift counter? Because if it's a shift counter, then sure, it can clock down after every shift.
Yeah.
We'll have to pay attention to the next episode to see if we see it again, because
we didn't get to see it later on in the episode when they say like 30
it changes 30
later.
shifts. Yeah, and it changes. It actually does. I think I've got a shot of that as well.
Okay.
We'll get to it. All right. So that was the big one. That was one that bothered me for a while. I needed to talk about that one. Okay, back at the embassy party on Coruscant, Mon Mothma joins Perrin in front of the large window of their apartment overlooking the Coruscant cityscape. Perrin is entertaining a pair of guests, and he remarks to Mon that he was just talking about how many hours a day the two of them spend standing there admiring the view. Mon remarks that it's not enough and how sometimes you forget to savor the familiar. And she remarks that she and Perrin came to Coruscant at a very young age. We learn that Mon Mothma became a senator at the age of 16, but by that time, she and Perrin had already been married for a year. They refer to it as an old Chandrillan custom, which I guess suggests that
possible arranged marriage.
Possible arranged marriage, yeah. Changing the subject, Mon asks Perrin if he's seen Tay. Perrin tells her that he left because he has an early morning the next day. And with a bright smile, Mon excuses herself, saying that she'll have to spend more time at the window. But as she walks away, that smile fades and a look of concern comes over. Like, she looks almost fearful. Now, is she afraid that something's happened to him or is going to happen to him?
Maybe.
Or is she afraid that, there's 400 grand in the wind that could be, sniffed out at any moment?
I looked at this like, this is my moment for Perrin, that maybe he's done something.
That absolutely crossed my mind as well.
Yeah.
I've been thinking for sure, like, he's an inside guy.
Yeah. And if she's coming asking like, oh, you're asking about him again?
If he's an inside guy, like, for real, that might soften the blow if she has to leave him.
To sever that connection.
Yeah. But if it's not, hopefully she didn't do something to Tay.
Yeah.
I do think Tay's days are limited.
Numbered.
Yeah, they are. Well, on his first night on Narkina 5, Cassian sits on the floor at the edge of his cell, with a look of despair on his face. The camera pans up to his display that still reads 2,189. Then the lights come on and the number shifts to 2,159. So 30 shifts have now passed, and Cassian appears to be fully acclimated to his new factory life. Finishing his morning meal, the floor lights shift from red back to white, and all the men of Cassian's shift line up single file. They all enter a common shower where they're bathed in some form of cleansing steam or other chemical before entering another room where each man takes a new prison jumpsuit from a square cubby on the back wall. I've used communal showers before. It's weird when it's institutionalized like that. It's never not weird. Let me just put it that way.
Well, it looked fun in Starship Troopers.
That was different. That was different. Yeah.
So 30 shifts later and 30 days have been removed from the counter.
They have been, yeah. So
no
30.
Weekends off.
Yeah, no. Now, on the work floor, Cassian has been fully integrated with the other men of Table 5. They flow seamlessly as they assemble this 6-pronged spoke-like piece over and over and over again. Jembok tells the men that Table 3 is off by 2, and they've only assembled 18 units. And Table 4 is also struggling. This could be a winning day for them as they fly through the next unit. Yulof struggles to fit one of the pins, throwing off the rhythm of the entire table. He steps aside to let Zal help him, and Cassian takes a moment to lean against the table while the problem is fixed. But Kino, who's been standing nearby, notices Cassian resting and comes over to the table, criticizing them. What are you, just taking a break? And reinforces that they actually have a real shot at winning the shift today, and it would be a shame to waste it. With a smug look on his face, Kino walks away while Cassian watches. Zal finally fixes the pin problem, and the men finish the unit as we cut again to the outside of the hotel on Rick's Road on Ferrix, where Imperial military personnel are stacking some crates. Brasso, who we haven't seen since episode 1, walks down the street dressed in his work clothes as he looks at what's going on around him. At Marva's, Bix has come to check in on her. Now, she's worried because Marva's breathing sounds pretty raspy and she's freezing cold. She tries to get Marva to tell her what's wrong, but Marva doesn't want to, thinking that she'd just be complaining. While draping a blanket over Marva, Bix says she's just trying to figure out if Marva needs to see a doctor or not. And B2 rolls over and asserts that Marva has a pain in her knee. And Marva says to Bix, well, the doctor was there the day before, but she doesn't really offer any details about that visit. So we don't know how bad it is. I suspect.
Yeah.
Big C?
Maybe.
Big C, if that's a thing in Star Wars. Big C, by the way, that's a fancy way of saying cancer. Excuse me. But she's not well. She's clearly not well. And Bix remarks that Marva got dizzy again. Well, then the front door opens and in comes Brasso. He rushes to her side saying, what have you done now? Marva cracks a joke that apparently she's throwing a party. But Brasso looks at her as he retorts, I heard the boys had to carry you home. Marva says, oh, word travels fast. And Bix says that she fell. Marva sips from the teacup that she has, unable to look at either of them. Well, outside of Marva's place, Brasso asks Bix, what was she doing by the hotel? Bix says that Marva fell while she was trying to pry open an old floodgate. Not because she thought that she could flood the Imperials out, but because she wanted to know if the old tunnel under the hotel was still open so the rebellion could use it to sneak in and take the Imperials by surprise. Bix smiles up at Brasso's saying, she's a rebel. And I love that. I really did like that. Brasso sighs as he says that he should be coming by to see her more often. And Bix says, well, she's not your mother. A fact that Brasso points out also applies to Bix. Well, she's not yours either. And Brasso asserts that Marva she can't stay here much longer. But Bix is like, good luck with that. He then suggests that a service club, and he names them, the Daughters of Ferrix, might be able to help, especially seeing as Marva is a past president. And Bix tells him that they've already tried, but Marva has made her wishes clear. Daughters of Ferrix, I didn't find a reference on that. I presume it's probably like,
Lions Club or something.
4-H or something, Thinking out loud, Brasso utters Cassian. And Bix asks Brasso, you really don't know where he is? And he just shakes his head, no. Well, then the camera shifts to a view from across the street, and someone is observing them. And that someone just happens to be Vel. And Vel is sitting inside the door to a cafe. Cinta enters the building and sits down next to her, asking, who's the big guy? Vel says she has no idea, and then asks Cinta where she's been, saying that she was about to come and look for her. Cinta looks at Vel with a pensive frown and tells her that there's a room to rent just around the corner. Vel says, we can't just stay here. And Cinta counters with, I can. Vel says, alone? Sipping from her drink, Cinta tells her that the two of them together would just draw too much attention. Feeling jilted, Vel blurts out, just stay here and wait. Just hope he shows up. She adds that Cassian could be anywhere, but Cinta locks eyes with her and asks, what's the alternative? Vel asks her, haven't we been apart long enough? And Cinta, quite coldly, tells her, it's not about us. Continuing, Vel asks her, after what we've been through. While lowering her voice, Cinta leans in and says, do you think the Empire stops to catch its breath? She's like
rebel.
laser focused.
She's all in.
Yeah. Cinta adds that, and this line just gets it. This is a fight to the death, Vel. A fight to the death.
Yep.
Vel's eyes dart around as she thinks about what's next before asking Cinta, well, who would you say you are? And Cinta stares back at her, offering, maybe I'm a rich girl running away from her family. Okay, I've been saying it for like episode after episode after episode that there is a familial connection between Vel and Luthen.
Yep.
And that is just one more. Whoop, that's a +1 for that theory. Yeah.
Especially with her response.
Yeah. Vel leans back in her seat, remarking, that's cold, even for you. And then Cinta reminds her that she told Vel that the struggle will always come first. They can take what's left. So yeah, she is all in. There is no room, or there is very little room for anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Cinta can see that Vel is obviously hurt, and she sighs as she drops her head. Well, then looking back up, she says, I'm a mirror, Vel. You love me because I show you what you need to see. Vel turns her attention back to Bix and Brasso across the street. Bix thanks him, and he says she'll check in more often. And at the same time, Cinta reaches across the table to hold Vel's hand, and together they watch as Bix leaves and Brasso goes back inside Marva's place. We cut to Pax's shop where Bix has just walked in. Well, seeing her, Pax steps in behind the counter, asking if Bix's shop has been as slow as his place. She says, yeah, adding that losing the hotel has not been good for business. Pax says they need to call a meeting, presuming that there's something they can do about it. I assume he means some kind of business association, like Chamber of Commerce or something.
Maybe.
I don't think it's think it's a rebel overture.
The contingent of people that they assume worked with Cassian.
All of the cast, like the Nurchies of
everybody who was banging the pipes.
Yeah. He asks Bix, what's up? And she tells him she needs to look for something out back. Well, he shoots her a very worried look as he says, I'm not sure that's a good idea. It's been off for a while. While leaning in, Bix insists that it's urgent. And Pax sighs as he nods and says, all right. Well, wide-eyed, Bix rushes past Willimon on her way out to the yard, and both father and son look at each other and share a weary look. Climbing up the silo, Bix activates the pirate radio and frantically begins typing out a message on the rudimentary keyboard. Well, back in the gallery on Coruscant, Luthen puts out what appears to be some kind of fossil.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like a fossil anyway. He calls out for Clea, and when Clea doesn't respond, he walks into the back room where he finds her listening to the pirate radio. Now, Clea tells him it's the shopkeeper from Ferrix, and she's looking for Cassian Andor because his mother is sick. Luthen looks at her with his mouth agape at the potential opportunity to find him, but Clea insists we can't answer her. Luthen points out that Bix knows more than they do, and she could be a strong lead, but Clea counters that it's more likely the ISB using the radio. Luthen snaps at her, you're guessing, and Clea snaps back, and you're slipping. Pulling the earpiece away from her head, Clea informs Luthen they're shutting down Ferrix, the code, the frequency, all of it. She insists that she is thinking clearly, while Luthen is not. Holding the earpiece up to Luthen, she says, tell me to shut it down. But Luthen is hesitant before he responds. He says, it's Andor, and nervously starts to pace as he remarks that he's out there. And Luthen doesn't know what Cassian knows or doesn't know. And that worries him.
Mm-hmm. A loose end.
Yeah, exactly. Which adds weight to the sequence of Clea telling Vel, find him, you mean kill him.
Yeah.
Now you kind of wonder, does the hit come from Luthen or does it come from Clea? Luthen said we got to find him. Clea's like, yeah, you just got to find him and kill him.
Yeah.
Do we think Luthen's as cold as, like, is he the cold killer type?
I think so.
I don't. I think she's added that.
Maybe. But he's definitely got a coldness in him.
Oh, absolutely he does. Luthen recounts how he took Cassian on the ship, the FANdor, rhetorically asking, was I insane? Clea says that he was desperate for Aldhani to work, and it did. She says they will find him, but not with the radio and not like this. Luthen points out that Vel and Cinta are out hunting. He asks, have they made it to Ferrix yet? Clea says, I'll have a listen. And Luthen makes his way around the large table. He tells her that the contact's name on Ferrix is Bix Kaleen. And Vel could look in on her if it's safe, adding that they know what they're doing. Well, Luthen and Clea lock eyes for a minute, and he says, I'm not slipping. I've just been hiding for too long. Clea tells him it's all different now that they've gone loud, as she puts it, and that vulnerability is inevitable. And taking in her words, Luthen nods to himself as he repeats, I'm not slipping. She tells him that she knows, but she also needs him to wake up because there is a lot to do. Well, without looking at her, Luthen tells Clea, shut it down. And she replaces the earpiece in the box and she powers it off. And when the electronic static quiets, the two just look at each other pensively. Luthen's gallery, which is essentially, might as well be Rancho Obi-Wan, because every time you go there, there's something new. A couple things this week. One, we did get not a better look. We got a different look at those clawed gloves from the week before. I'm still not 100% sure, but the more I look at them, I kind of wonder, is this another part of the Star Killer Sith armor?
Maybe.
You know, the gloves in the game on the cover anyway, the box art, do not look as armored as these ones are. But at the same time, like, I still cannot find anything that really kind of leads to what they are. And I'd say that they're not as big as I thought they were before. They're not as huge as I once thought they were. Also, the helmet in behind, you can see that the Jedi Temple Guardian helmet. So he's moved it around. The other one, this one is interesting. I completely missed this one until yesterday. Until I saw it online. I had to go looking for it, and I found it. We get a piece of headdress that is remarkably similar to the one that Padme wore in Episode 2 in Attack of the Clones, when she and Anakin used public transportation to fly back to Naboo. I don't necessarily think that this is the same piece,
but same.
It is absolutely the same style. So, I mean, if you said this is some kind of like ancient Naboo,
I'd buy that.
Yeah, I would buy that. I do not think that this came out of Padme's wardrobe.
No. But you never know, like, because she was a famous senator, right?
That is also true.
People collect Elvis merch.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah.
And being queen at one point, she would have multiple stuff.
I want to go back to the fossils though, because that was the thing that caught me this week. Was they made a point to focus on the fossil, the centerpiece. There's actually 3 pieces, but the largest piece, the center one, they make a point to zoom in on it a bit as he's placing it onto the stand. What are these fossils?
I do not know.
Well, the first thing I thought of was like the arthropods, the fossils that we have on our own here on Earth.
Yeah.
And if we use that as an analogy, then my mind immediately goes to the Kuhun, the arthropod that Zam Wessel used to try to assassinate Padme.
Back in Episode 2.
I mean, the middle piece kind of looks skeletal, like there's some kind of skeleton there, but then I'm like, maybe that's a red herring. And maybe this is a metaphor, because we've already had a metaphor in Luthen's gallery with the two-faced divinity. The two-faced divinity, originally we talked about it being sort of a metaphor for the rebellion and the Empire.
Yeah.
But more aptly, in that second meeting between Mon and Luthen, it's like, oh, no, the divinity, it's them. It's Mon and Luthen. With this, There are three pieces. And what's interesting to point out is that when you look up fossils in Star Wars, there's not a whole lot going on there, but there is an interesting reference, and that is fossils. There's a reputation trophy in the video game The Old Republic, and it is called Ancient Animal Fossil. What's interesting about that is that you get that reputation trophy by completing a mission on the planet Onderon. Well, guess who happens to be from Onderon? Saw Gerrera is from Onderon. So if we put our sort of metaphor glasses on and we look at the three pieces of fossils the same way we looked at the divinity, is this a metaphor for it's now not just the two of them, it's now the three of them? Just my thoughts on it. Especially knowing that this is the episode that Saw shows up. So yeah, you know what? Somebody out there is watching this thing for, some dude at Lucasfilm was like, we weren't thinking that at all, but damn, that's good. All right. Anyway, that's just my weird thoughts on the whole thing.
It's a good thought.
Okay. Guys, listening, watching, what do you think? What do you think of the what do you think of the two-faced divinity as a metaphor? And what do you think of the fossils? Do you guys have any idea what these fossils are and what they represent? Let us know.
Well, if that fossil does represent those death worms,
the Kuhans,
yes,
yeah,
could it mean something like Mon Mothma's third tie that she wants to bring in? Right?
Oh yeah,
could be bad for their health.
The third, well, I mean, and we assume that third is Tay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, things will play out.
I don't know. All right. Well, back on Ferrix, Bix, still in the silo, leans her head against the railing as she listens to Pax pirate radio. When there's no response, she punches the ladder, and she looks up as she continues to frantically hammer away the message on that little itty-bitty keyboard. We then cut to the interior of the speeder bus, as it were. Looks like the same one that Luthen was on. Yeah,
transport bus.
The speeder bus crosses the rocky landscape of Ferrix, and sitting near the back of the bus, Vel, with a forlorn look on her face, stares out the window. Then the image of Cinta crossfades into the bus window with Vel staring out while Cinta is staring back at her. And then Vel fades out, and we see that Cinta is actually looking through the louvers of the apartment window that she's just rented that is about a block away from Marva's, but has a great view of the front door. Well, high over Coruscant, Luthen's FANdor Hallcraft speeds away from Coruscant. On board, Luthen, still dressed in his public guise, sits at the controls. A rudimentary display on the control yoke shows his current flight path. Flipping a few controls, Luthen orders the ship's droid mod to coordinate alternatives for Segra Milo. Again, I said it before, lots of new names creeping up this episode. No reference for Segra Milo. That's another new one. With the ship now on autopilot, Luthen releases the yoke, and he gets up while the droid tells him there are 4 possible routes to the planet. Exiting the cockpit, Luthen instructs the droid to take the long way around, and the droid lays in a course. Back on Narkina 5, the men of 52D sleep quietly in their cells, all except for one. A bald man, his name is Vimos, stands at the edge of his cell, and he's staring at the hallway floor as he breathes quite heavily. Well, at the sound of the electrified floor, the other men, along with Cassian, are, pardon the pun, jolted from their sleep.
Nice.
Surprisingly, the men seem to be more bothered that they're going to have to put up with the smell of the fried dead body than the fact that a man just took his own life. Vimo lays there motionless while the floor lights flash red as all the men peer out from their cells. Cassian looks away, shaking his head, and it would seem that unlike the others, he hasn't lost all of his humanity, at least not yet. Eventually, Kino shouts for the men to quiet down. At the same time, the voice of God announces that there has been a floor disruption and they all have 10 seconds to return to their beds. The men all step back from the edges of their cells, and the floor lights stop flashing and turn solid red again. No one comes to retrieve Vimo's body.
So we can assume that he just sits there.
They just left him there all night. Yeah.
Oh.
On Ferrex, Bix rushes into the yard of her shop. She's alerted to the sound of the same metal-on-metal signal that was used when the corpos had come just days earlier. The
clink,
bang,
clink,
bang,
clink,
bang.
clink, clink.
Yeah, exactly. Rushing through the streets, following the sound, she runs into Nurchi, who tells her that something's going on at Pax. A short while later, Bix arrives in front of Pax's shop, and she looks panicked as Imperials restrain Willimon. Willimon is distraught, demanding to know where they've taken his father. Bix spots Brasso in the crowd, and she asks him, what's going on? And he tells her that they've taken Pac to the hotel. They took him away the night before, and he never came home. From inside the shop, the newly minted prefect, Captain Tigo, steps out and orders the squad of stormtroopers to push the crowd back and set up a perimeter. Nervously, Bix turns her face away from the approaching troopers, and Brasso says, are you okay? She shakes her head and says, I don't know. As the troopers begin to push back the people, Tigo follows them up the stairs until he spots something in the crowd. Taking a data pad from his subordinate, he looks at it for a moment before he calls out, Bix, Colleen. Staring at her, Tigo says, that is your name, isn't it? Adding, if not, the resemblance is quite striking. Brasso whispers to Bix, get to Zorby's, run. And then he feigns kind of clumsiness as he puts himself between the Imperials and Bix and just kind of does the, oh, sorry, as they try to get around him. Bix runs for all she's worth while several black uniformed army personnel and stormtroopers give chase. Making her way down a staircase onto a wider road, she gives it all she has, and periodically looking back over her shoulder while she runs. We cut to space where we get a really nice pass by of Luthen's FANdor Hallcraft as it approaches Segra Milo. I had a lot of fun with this one because I just basically cut it 3 times.
Nice.
Chopped the background out of it and laid the ship in like every time so we could see it from all the angles that they give us. It's a cool looking ship. It still, to me, has some like Corellian kind of trappings to it. I know that that's not the case, that it's from FANdor. By the way, you know what else comes from FANdor?
Fondue?
Well,
Hondo?
Executor. The first Super Star Destroyer was made at FANdor.
There you go.
Well, at least in Legends it was anyway. All right, yeah. So nice look at Luthen's ship. We then cut to Benthic Two Tubes. Benthic Two Tubes standing guard over a rocky valley. Now he's still wearing the same outfit that he wore when he rode with Enfys Nest and the Cloud Riders. Just below him sit a pair of Incom T-65 X-Wing fighters, while Luthen's FANdor Hallcraft rests a few meters away. On the far side of the valley, we can see some caves cut into the rock face, while several other personnel go about their work down below, including the Jagoran Moroff. All right, let's focus on this for a second. Two Tubes, Benthic Two Tubes, by the way, we've mentioned him before, appeared both in Rogue One and Solo. This is clearly the Solo outfit that he is wearing. Mm-hmm. He is dressed a little bit differently in Rogue One, but definitely Benthic. And cool, Moroff. You can see him. He's way down there. Yeah. We do get another look at him though from inside the cave over Luthen's shoulder, and it's like that's clearly Moroff.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, what was I saying before? Aiden Cook. Aiden Cook plays Benthic. He played Benthic in both films.
Nice.
Yeah. And Moroff is uncredited in this episode. We don't actually see him in the credits. However, he was played by Ian White in Rogue One. And Ian White has already turned up in Andor as Vetch, the big turtle guy that Nurchi brought along as an enforcer. Yeah,
muscle.
Yeah. So could be the same actor. I presumably it probably is.
Probably is.
Ian White, he was our engineer from Prometheus. Yeah, so if you want to know what he looks like, that's what he looks like. Okay. What I really think is kind of cool here, and only like certain do I dare say nerds are going to pick up on this one? The X-Wing fighters, there's a pair of them there. There's 2 X-Wing fighters. I love the paint scheme, the white and the black. Now, I don't know if this was done intentionally or not, but they've given them basically a variation of the paint scheme used in the X-Wing miniatures game to represent the scum and villainy faction.
Nice.
I mean, you've got a bunch of factions, but basically, you've got Rebellion, Empire, and then like all your scum and villainy. So all of your like Han Solo is scum and villainy, Boba Fett is scum and villainy,
Greedo,
right? Saw Gerrera, scum and villainy. So interesting that they've given it a similar paint scheme. That's actually a model from the X-Wing. That's the Z95 Headhunter. It's the precursor to the X-Wing.
Nice.
Which also appears on the box art for the Scum and Villainy conversion kit. So yeah, I love that. I don't know if it's intentional. I want to believe it is. So that's what I'm going
probably
with.
Is.
Inside the cave, Luthen sits down to meet with rebel partisan Saw Gerrera, who, canonically speaking, we have not seen since the events of Jedi Fallen Order in 14 BBY.
Well, we did see him in Bad Batch.
Did we?
Briefly, yeah.
Oh, the Bad Batch would be would be sooner, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's post 66.
What did he do in
the Bad Batch, it's the first mission they get sent on. They get sent to get rid of the insurgents.
Well, I take that back. That's my bad.
And he's like, "No, we're doing this." And
they
let him live, and then Crosshair comes in with his faction and destroy them all. Except
what's interesting is that he's played consistently though through all of the media, that he's like this
hard ass.
Well, I mean, Luthen basically calls him an anarchist. And that's pretty much on the nose. Well, the 2 men make platitudes toward each other about which one of them was responsible for the Aldhani garrison. What's interesting about the exchange here is how Saw rhetorically questions Luthen, "Do you think I'd be out here in the cold if I just pinched 100 million credits?" There's another. So it's been burned. Everybody's been murdered. It's now 100 million credits. Like, how big does the story get?
Big enough to start a rebellion.
Is the story big enough to spark, to motivate, to inspire other rebels?
I think it might be.
It's an interesting question.
Point.
Yeah. Moving past the events of Aldhani, Saw asks Luthen if Luthen's tired of playing behind the scenes. And Luthen says, well, Estes asks Saw, "Are you tired of fighting with people who agree with you?" And then Saw says, "Did you come all this way to scold me, or have you brought me some toys?" as he gestures to a bunch of equipment in the cave. Nodding, Luthen says he did, but he adds that it's not for free. And cynically, Saw remarks, "Well, nothing with you, Luthen, is ever free." But Luthen casually points out that not every operation is as well off in terms of gear as Saw's operation is. So yes, he's an anarchist, but he's a well-equipped anarchist. At least 2 X-Wing fighters. That's a huge deal. Saw asks what Luthen has brought him, and Luthen says it's a full set of Imperial drive adapters and 3 sealed steer guard targeting deflectors. Now, there's no reference for targeting deflector that I could find, but I presume that that's some kind of countermeasure,
something to do
device.
With shields, maybe.
What's cool though is there is a reference for drive adapters, specifically the repulsor lift drive adapter. That's a Legends reference. It comes from the Star Wars source book. That's the 1987 role-playing supplement for the Star Wars role-playing game from West End Games.
Nice.
It is a component specifically for a T-65 X-Wing that gives the ship repulsor lift capability. So it can fly around like a hovercraft.
Nice.
So that's kind of interesting. And here's just a cutaway view of the section of the X-Wing where you would find the repulsor lift drive.
You'd think it'd be further back.
Yeah, you would.
Just to balance it out.
Yeah. Well, Saw asks Luthen if he's brought everything with him, all the items that he just listed. And when Luthen says that he has, Saw says, at what cost? And Luthen makes a play for the network that he and Mon Mothma have been building by name-dropping another rebel cell led by someone named Anto Krieger, adding that he would like for Saw to meet with Anto Krieger. Saw laughs at the name, but Luthen points out that Anto has been probing the Imperial power station at Spellhouse, it's another new name, and has found a weakness in their defenses.
That could almost be a legacy line in itself.
What's that?
Found a weakness in their defenses.
A weakness in their defenses. Yeah, really. Spellhouse, it's a new name here. It kind of has a German flair as far as I can tell. Of course,
Yeah.
House in German is German for house. So spells house. I don't know. Whoever Spellhouse is. Anyway, upset and now quite offended at the suggestion, Saw shouts that Krieger is an ox, calls him slow and stupid. Cutting him off, Luthen counters that he's also strong. Luthen suggests that Anto Krieger would need air support to pull off whatever it is that he has planned for Spellhouse, and he wants Saw to hear the plan. But Saw isn't interested in taking that meeting, and he suggests that he and Luthen keep their business simple. He offers to buy the 3 deflector units, and he asks what is the price. Luthen, still trying to play his angle, says that if Saw were to meet with Krieger, they're free. But if he doesn't, they're not for sale. Stoically, Saw says, I work alone. Something Luthen would like to change, but Saw views working with other rebel cells as an unnecessary risk. Well, then Luthen gets angry and he raises his voice as he shouts, we need to pull together, Saw. Regaining his composure, Luthen says that whatever their final version of success looks like, no single rebel cell will be able to make it real on their own. He adds that they need the Empire to be angry and to come down hard, adding that oppression breeds rebellion. Saw is about to. Let me just read this here, and then I'll get back to it for a second. Luthen reiterates that Krieger needs air support, and Saw dismisses him with, "I'm not for hire." But Luthen leans forward and he presses him. Think about it. Think of Spellhouse in flames. And Luthen asserts that if both men were to work together, they could pull it off. But what comes next from Saw reminds us of exactly where he comes from, as he points out that Krieger is a separatist. And it's important to note that he speaks in the present tense. It's not Krieger was a separatist, it's Krieger is a separatist.
It's still a thing.
Yeah. Talking a little bit about Saw Gerrera, and I put a picture up here. This is young Saw Gerrera with his sister, Stila Gerrera. And it's important to know that they fought against the separatists during the Onderon Civil War. Onderon tried to stay neutral in the Clone War, but they were invaded by the Confederacy and actually subjugated.
Mm-hmm.
So Saw ended up becoming the leader of this rebel movement on Onderon, which kind of contributes to his viewpoint about Krieger being a separatist.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then Saw drops another name, Maya Pei, and he calls him a neo-Republican, and then scoffs at the Gorman Front, the partisan alliance. Becoming unhinged, Saw goes off, deriding the whole thing. He shouts, sectorists, human cultists, galaxy partitionists, they're all lost. He really is an anarchist.
Mm-hmm.
So now we've got Saw Gerrera out there, and now we have Maya Pei and Anto Krieger. So we have at least 3 cells.
Yep.
It's 5 BBY. So the Ghost crew, conceivably without Ezra, are out there as well.
Yep.
That's 4. Interesting. Will we get a crossover? Will we get a little dip in, do you think, before the show's over?
Maybe
We are
a
so
minor.
close. We could get some kind of cohesion here before.
Yeah.
Here's
things have to start moving forward. Like,
here's Luthen,
float here for the next 5 years.
No. And here's Luthen trying to bring everybody together, and Saw is just like, I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting to see if Luthen has a success with somebody else and gets them to work with somebody else. I would love to see some of the Rebels crew turn up here. I don't think we will, but hey, one can hope. Staring intently, Saw asks, "What are you, Luthen?" Adding that I've never really known. And Luthen tells Saw that I'm a coward. He says he's a coward, and he's terrified that the Empire's power will grow to the point where no one will be able to do anything to stop it. He says that he's the one who says that we'll die with nothing if we don't put aside our petty differences. Saw laughs as he retorts, "Petty!" And then grinning from ear to ear, he asserts that he is the only one with clarity of purpose. Ugh. Luthen laughs out loud as he calls anarchy a seductive concept. Sounds very Jedi-like, doesn't it?
Jedi versus Sith.
Yeah. Is the dark side really more powerful? No. Easier. More seductive.
Yes.
Yeah. He calls it a luxury for someone that's been hiding in cold caves begging for spare parts. Now, if that is not a jab,
yep.
Saw clenches his jaw several times before he eventually cracks a smile, and he laughs at Luthen. "No sale today, Luthen." And he says, "Good luck with Anto Krieger." I don't think we're done with Saw Gerrera. I do think we'll be back before the end of the season. In what capacity? I don't know. Maybe he and Anto will end up working together. Maybe they won't.
Maybe his buddies are like, that was a good deal. Just go meet with him and get the stuff.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe they're just as extreme as he is.
Yeah.
Blind obedience.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, back on Ferrex, Bix, now in binders, is led by a pair of soldiers with a stormtrooper escort. They head back to the Imperial headquarters, now located at the hotel. Inside the hotel, Pac sits draped over a chair in the center of a room. In the corner of the room, a man dressed in a lab coat tends to some electronic equipment that just happens to be emitting the exact same sound as an IT-0 interrogator droid. It's not, I don't think it's out of the question to assume that they have totally tortured him.
Oh, absolutely.
Pac looks beaten as he sits there trying to recover his breath. At the same time, Dedra Miro paces across the room looking at her data pad. Well, the door opens and Captain Tigo walks in. He informs Dedra that Bix is being brought up, and he asks if he should remove Pac from the room. And Dedra says no, she wants Bix to see him. The way she goes about it is really weird.
Ruthless.
Like you could have told Tigo a little that you were the way that she was going to do it, because even he is like, what? Because Bix is brought in, and Dedra immediately looks at Tigo. What are you doing? Get him out of here! And Tigo looks confused, like, what? Anyway, he quickly orders the escort to come with him, and they drag Pac away. Clearly, this is meant as psychological warfare.
Yeah,
I suppose letting Bix see Pac is a way to encourage some compliance.
This is the length we're going to go to, so you better answer.
Also, Dr. Labcoat there does not leave the room.
No.
So you can infer what you want, but there's a good chance that whatever's in that box, it's getting used again.
Yeah. He's just over there sterilizing it right now.
With Pac out of the room, Dedra offers a very sinister hello, Bix, as she gestures to the empty chair at the center of the room. A look of terror comes over Bix's face. Then the camera shifts to the view of the room from outside in the hallway, while Dedra closes the door and Bix is forced into the chair. Dr. Labcoat, we don't get a good look at him. He's credited as Dr. Gorst. Dr. Gorst. And I wasn't going to include him, but when I looked up the actor, if this gentleman, Joshua James, does not scream mad scientist when you look at him, then I don't know what does.
It looks like he'd fit well at Arkham.
Yes, absolutely.
I could see him being like a Jonathan Crane type scarecrow.
Yeah. Fans of the HBO Max series Raised by Wolves, you may recognize Joshua James as the android Jin. Now, he's the android that attempts to shut down Mother and is unsuccessful. He also plays Tyler Brandon Mills in 6 episodes of the Amazon original Absentia. But yeah, Dr. Gorst. Yeah. On Narkina 5, the men of Table 5 work seamlessly as they assemble another one of the unidentified six-pronged hub-like structures. Kino Loy moves about the room, going from table to table, checking his datapad. Then the camera pulls back as an entire rack of hubs is wheeled past until we are looking at a wider shot of the entire room, and we cut to black. And that is the end of our episode. Man, what did you think?
We're in a dark spot right here for everybody that we've met so far.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to stay dark for long. I think we're going to get our spark of hope next episode.
With Cassian tied up in prison, I don't see a prison break happening like right away.
No.
I think he needs some time to stew here. I mean,
he needs time to plan.
He's been in for a month.
So right now he's just learning the like guard patterns, shift patterns, who you can trust, who you can't trust.
I want to know if he's learned any of the language, the sign language.
Maybe.
Do you think he's picked up on any of that?
He's a quick learner.
For sure he is. For sure. Let's talk about this whole 7 thing again. Like, now that we've seen the whole thing, we 7 corners, 7 rooms, 7 men, 7 tables,
7 deadly
sins.
7.
Well, so there you go. Can we talk about sort of 7 and the significance of the number 7 culturally?
Lucky for some.
I got a few things I want to say and how I want to relate them to Star Wars. These could just be like completely wild and like off base, but it's part of what we do here, and it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
7. How about the 7 wonders of the world? They're clearly building something for. I mean, let's just start with whatever it is that they are building has a purpose.
Yeah.
Some outlets have said maybe it's just nothing. Maybe they're just building something for the sake. I mean, to me, it's a couple of fidget spinners stuck together, right? Like, it could just be nothing. But it's not.
No, it's
not.
We're at the beginning of the Empire war machine.
Absolutely.
Kicking into high gear. They need it for something to build something.
Remember when we did our prop episode?
Yes.
Remember the most, what is it? What's the Star Trek prop? The most important thing in the universe?
Oh, yeah.
Is this the new version of that?
Maybe.
like it'll never be identified, but
tangible gear.
That's right. Let me start with the 7 wonders of the world. And I'm talking the ancient 7 wonders, all of which are amazing feats of either engineering or construction. So we're talking like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, the Great Pyramids, the Great Wall of China, all massive engineering feats. In Star Wars, what's a massive engineering feat?
Well,
we know it's coming.
They made it a couple times.
We know it's coming.
Yeah.
Okay, if not that, part of the Imperial war machine itself is a massive engineering feat.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Empire does tend to do things kind of big.
They do.
Yeah. And this is not a small part by any means.
No.
So
if this is just like a connecting gear for something bigger.
Right. I thought at first it reminded me of, like, you ever been on a suspension bridge and all those spokes? I thought, well, that's where the cables connect, at the ends of the spokes.
Yeah.
But they're hinged. So I don't know. I mean, they have to have flexibility for something. So who knows?
Yeah.
Number 7. Number 7 has significance in almost every major religion in the world. On the 7th day, God rested.
Mm-hmm.
How about this one? Specifically within the book of Revelation, the number of 7 connotes concepts like completion and perfection, exoneration and healing. as well as the fulfillment of promises and oaths. And what did the Emperor promise?
A whole lot.
Peace and prosperity in my empire.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's hard not to look at the big thing. Like, are they making parts of the Death Star? I know some folks have said that, yeah, these are parts of the Death Star. What parts? I don't know.
But contrary to that, when we pick up with Galen Erso in Rogue One, he hasn't started planning it yet, has he? Or is he just there to finish it
Man,
off?
I got to go back to there's a prequel novel. He's been on the project for a while now.
Yeah.
He was working on ways on putting energy through Kyber to magnify. He's basically working on a way to basically have a renewable energy source. He's doing a noble
not necessarily
thing.
for the
No. He was never working. He was basically told, you're going to develop into a weapon.
You're going to build the laser.
You're going to turn it into a weapon.
So that would be technically, these could be structural pieces.
For sure, they could be. For sure.
A station, you're going to need all your parts before you go up there.
Well, going back to this number 7 for a minute. 7 is the number that most people can remember and recall without prompting. It's why most phone numbers are 7 digits. At least in North America, they are anyway.
Yeah.
And I think that directly contributes to the efficiency of the workforce. The only thing I couldn't figure out, and I went back and I watched, I'm like, are they assembling these things in 7 steps? Like that would be like, because I'm like, well, the thing comes up, they put the pins in, then they put the wrenches on, then the laser welder thing,
they spin,
and then the spin and the drill. I'm like, is that 7 steps? Like, I don't know.
Or is there more that we're missing?
There could be.
Oh, we got a comment.
Oh, first comment coming in here from Facebook tonight. This is a Facebook user, because Facebook groups will want to protect your privacy. So unless you give StreamYard permission to show us your name, we don't know who you are. But that's good. A prototype to something, I think. That's an interesting thought. Prototype.
I don't think it's a prototype, though, because if you've got 7 tables, 7 rooms, 7 levels.
Well, wait a minute. Don't go that far. Don't go. I will save that one because I've got it. I do want to talk.
I like your math there.
Yeah.
And that's going to reflect on why I think it is not a prototype.
Prototyping. Is it a prototype? Probably not, just because of the sheer volume of what they're pumping out here.
Like, I mean, we're assuming that all 7 rooms are doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, the math that I did does presume a couple of things, which we will blow apart at the end, but we have to get there first.
Yeah.
And here's another one about the number 7. In astrology, the 7th sign in astrology is Libra. Balance. Libra, often associated with the Roman goddess of justice, Astrea. The Emperor's got some new justice going on.
Yeah, his type of justice.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
The sentences.
The part, the spindle, the double fidget spinner thingy.
Yeah.
Throws everything off because, like I said, even though the rack, that's a full rack, there are 7 of them on the rack. There's only 6 spokes. Well, six is really, really significant when you're talking about math and geometry, because with 6, by the way, this thing looks to me like it's undeniable, the Lego analogy, by the way. And when you start thinking of 6-sided figures and Lego, and we're definitely building something, well, what's something you can build with a 6-sided figure? How about a geodesic dome? Now, I know we've seen images of the Death Star in various forms. We've seen it holographically. We've seen some of the exposed bits with the Death Star 2. We've also seen it at the end of Revenge of the Sith.
We
at
get
the end
some
where they're staring at it.
Skywalker.
Yeah. It's not impossible that the Death Star conceptually is a geodesic sphere. Certainly they didn't. I mean, obviously this picture shows there's no way they built it that way. But that's not to say that they didn't build it in sections that way. And really, I'm just going to be a total jerkwad. We've already had some retconning this week, so why can't this be another one?
Well, we already know they built it in pieces, right?
Yeah.
Because we did get to see that final completion when the laser.
When they laid in the focusing array. Yeah, they did. It is undeniable, though, that whole Lego analogy. Okay. The question is, if it's not the Death Star, if it is not parts of the Death Star, which, by the way, is the most tragic thing it could be, because that just adds a whole other, like, oh my God, Cassian is helping to build the thing that's going to take his life. What else could it be? So we looked at some other things. Andy, you thought that the spoke looked like the central hub of the
TIE fighter
wing of a TIE fighter.
Yeah. It's got the 6.
Sure does.
And my thinking was that, you would need that bit of flex for flight maneuvers.
I agree that atmospheric flight would absolutely need some flexibility. But then, as we were, and it's too bad that Hank's not here, because I think we kind of got into a bit of an argument in our private chat. It's like, I build stuff for a living, and I'm like, yeah, space wizards and laser swords. Do you know what I mean? So, like, it's hard to
dial in. And
it is, when you want to argue the reality of something in a franchise that includes space wizards and laser swords. The argument to somebody who's not a fan has to look ridiculous.
It's like, it's a gear. Who cares? We care.
I stuck with the geodesic dome thing. And I mean, the other big geodesic dome within Star Wars, the shield generators on a Star Destroyer, going so far as maybe this class of Star Destroyer, it's called the Interdictor. These aren't shield generators on it. They are tractor beam emitters. This class of ship would basically park on a major space lane
and just pull,
and it would turn the tractor beam,
whoever you need to
exactly turn on the tractor beam emitters, and it will pull ships out of hyperspace. Hello, we're coming aboard. Let's see show me your manifest, that kind of thing.
And that's the thing too, right? Like, we have Star Destroyers, we have TIE fighters, we have the Death Star, we have so many variations.
I went looking for moving things, like, okay, a walker leg parts, couldn't find anything that fit neatly because it's too small to be a foot.
Yeah, because we saw a foot crush the snow speeder
right
off.
And they have 4 toes, not 6. I don't know. I saw some outlets were talking about maybe this was the undercarriage of the Viper probe droid, where the arms or the limbs connect to it. I don't buy that.
I think it's too big for that.
For honestly, droid. I agree with you on that. I don't think it's that either.
But we can measure the size, right? Like, we know it's roughly the same height as a human making.
Yeah, as a person.
So say it's like a 5 or 6 foot gear.
All right. Well, whatever it is, they are building an awful lot of them. Now, this presumes some things which we will blow apart at the end. But remember, we have one table. Now, this goes back to that line from Gembach about they're down and have only assembled 18 units. So that is the only hard, fast number we have, is 18 units. So if we presume that each table is producing at least 18 units per shift, we can extrapolate from that 7 tables in a room, that's 126 units per room. Of course, we have 7 rooms on a floor, factory floor. That equates to 882 units. We have 7 floors per factory, and that equates to 6,174 units per factory.
Per shift.
We have 7 factories. That makes 43,218 units per shift. And as you say, we have 2 shifts per day. Now, if all 7 factories are making this spoke thing, they are churning out somewhere in the neighborhood of 86,436 units per day. For that reason, I do not believe that it is a prototype.
No, not at that.
Sean on YouTube says something secret for the Emperor. Again, secret. The volume just does not lend itself to secret. To me, it's going to be a common piece. And Andy, maybe the TIE Fighter wing hub. I mean, 86,000. That's 43,000 TIE fighters.
Yeah.
I mean, the Imperial Navy was pretty freaking huge.
But did we factor in when he started building on Exegol?
No.
Because the secret thing could be there. You're making all these parts, and if they're compartmentalizing it, like, okay, this guy's building a gear, he doesn't know what it's for. This guy's over here building this, he doesn't know what it's for. It all gets shipped to there.
That is interesting. The Sith fleet?
Maybe.
The Sith fleet that has apparently been sitting there waiting for decades?
Yeah.
Well,
because it had to get built somehow.
They could be. I want to go back again to the whole suspension bridge thing and posit that maybe these are structural components and they do need to flex for things like atmospheric flight. It becomes less of an issue once you're in space and zero gravity. But like a suspension bridge, it needs to be able to flex. And that's why they have these hinged fingers, as it were.
Yeah.
Anyway, there is an awful lot of whatever it is that's going on there. 86,436.
And we can times that by 30, right? Because we've been through 30 shifts.
Dear Lord. Okay, now let's blow that all out of the water.
Because
let's blow it out.
First day they're making those.
Maybe, yeah.
Shift 30, they're still making those components.
Oh, that's true. For 30 shifts.
Because they're not going to retool the whole thing without shutting it down.
That is true. The counterpoint to that is we don't know how long they've been making them for, and we don't know that all 7 factories are in fact making those.
Yeah.
Maybe the other 6 factories are making. Well, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe the other floors are making something different. Maybe the other factories are making something different.
Maybe the bottom floor is doing something with like the molten steel, which would require all that water to come funneling down.
Maybe. You know what? Earlier in the week, I kind of shied away from it, but we're here now. I had suggested that perhaps there is more to the idea that whatever they are building is being reintroduced back into the factory complex itself.
Maybe.
That the 7 factory complexes, which mostly are underwater, so we don't see them. The reason that they're underwater is that the factories themselves are larger components of the Death Star that will be raised out of the water at a later time.
So they're literally building more factories.
They're built. Well, here's the thing.
Could be.
Here's the thing. Star Wars is famous for telling us that the Imperial design aesthetic is modular and prefab. Prefab. That's the reason why a Star Destroyer shows up, drops a garrison. There's a whole building with troops.
Yeah.
You know, the garrison on one world is the same as anywhere else. Not a far stretch to think that the factories could in fact be like the interior. Star Wars famous for long tubular, like the
planks and gangways.
Yeah. Oh my God, I just had a thought right now while we're talking about this for a second. I have to look this up. Because that would just be biggest. Oh my God.
You know what the best part about these is though?
What's that?
All those platforms that they walk across to and from the shift are sealed. So there's no chance of falling off. Handrails save lives, people.
Oh, I don't think it works.
Uh-oh.
I don't think it works. The Death Star Mega Laser, how many beams converge into one? 1, 2, 3, 4,
looks to
5,
be 8.
6, 7, 8. Okay, so that doesn't work. I was like, oh my God, the factories are part of the smaller lasers. Okay, that doesn't make sense. All right. I'll let that go now.
Hydroelectric lasers.
Hydroelectric laser power. All right. Well, listen, that has been a Fandom Power look at Andor episode, oh my God, 8? Episode 8. Narkina 5. Too many numbers getting tossed around this episode. Where do you think we're headed next?
I think we're going to catch up with Bix first and find out how she makes out. And possibly more with Marva. But
I think we got more time to spend with Cyril Karn. Yeah. Cyril Karn still seems to be sort of a dangling kind of thing. Cassian is in the freaking prison system 30 days and they haven't figured it out that he's there.
Yeah, they don't care at this point. They're just taking people off the street to build.
That is true.
You can work, get in there, go.
I'm stuck between, there's going to be a prison break versus
an escape.
Dedra is going to intervene somehow and he will escape her custody with the help of someone like Vel who's trying to kill him but won't.
Yeah.
Who knows?
But they didn't find the book yet. Now the manifesto is
the
still
manifesto,
technically safe.
that so another big one. Like, what are we gonna do with that? Oh, okay. Only a few days before those questions will be answered, as Andor episode 9 comes out here this Wednesday. So that's going to be November. What's the date of this? No, holy
2nd.
cow, November 2nd. We're just a few days away. As always, we will be back with our in-depth review the following Sunday. Like I said, guys, we will never be first, but we will always be thorough. And we just want to say thanks for hanging out with us for the last, I don't know, almost 2.5 hours. I mean, if you're catching this on the replay, I hope you've enjoyed it. Do throw a sub our direction, because even if you don't want to subscribe, I would love for you to subscribe to our channel. Even if you don't do that, just throw a little thumbs up on the video, chuck a little emoji. Even if you don't want to leave a comment, throw an emoji in the comments, because all of those things help to boost the algorithm so our videos will get seen. If you're listening to us on your audio platform of choice, thank you. Thank you so much. Please stay with us. We've got lots more coming. Like I said, we've got Tales of the Jedi coming. And then before you know it, the Bad Batch will be back. We've got Skeleton Crew coming, as well as all the other side projects. Andy, you've got a side project coming out. It's coming out when?
Soon, hopefully within the next couple weeks.
Sneak peek. We got something coming out in the next couple of weeks, horror related, horror themed. Okay, so horror fans, stay tuned for that, because Andy's got an awesome video that I know that he will want you to see, and we'll be back before you know it. So for Fandom Power, guys, my name is Wes.
I'm Andy.
We'll see you on the next one. Bye for now, guys. How does it work?
Down there.
Bye.